The Stranger in the Rain. The rain on Kepler 442b fell sideways, driven by winds that could strip paint from metal. Marcus Chin watched the storm through the grease-stained window of the Golden Spoon, his restaurant tucked between a fuel depot and a broken-down mining equipment yard. The neon sign above his door flickered weakly, barely visible through the downpour. It was the kind of night that kept even the hardiest miners indoors, which meant another evening of empty tables and mounting debt. Marcus wiped down the counter for the third time that hour, a habit from his days as a sous chef in San Francisco, back when presentation mattered and customers appreciated the artistry of a well-plated dish. Here on this forsaken mining colony at the edge of explored space, nobody cared about artistry. The alien workers who occasionally stumbled into his establishment wanted fuel for their bodies, nothing more. Hot, filling, cheap. That was the only recipe that mattered in Sector 7. He was 52 years old, with gray threading through his black hair and permanent lines etched around his eyes. His hands, once steady enough to julienne vegetables with machine precision, now trembled slightly from the colony's high gravity. He had been on Kepler 442b for 3 years, running from memories that followed him across light years like persistent shadows. The wind howled, rattling the restaurant's thin walls. Marcus moved to the kitchen, checking his supplies. 2 protein packs, a bag of synthetic rice, some expired seasoning cubes. Tomorrow he would need to visit the trading post, which meant dealing with Gormak, the four-armed Zentarii merchant who charged triple for anything marked as human cuisine ingredients. Marcus did the math in his head and felt his stomach tighten. He was 600 credits short for next month's rent. Through the kitchen's back window, he spotted movement near the waste disposal unit. Marcus squinted through the rain-blurred glass. Something was there, huddled against the metal container, barely visible in the storm. Probably a scavenger, he thought. The colony had plenty of those alien creatures adapted to feeding on refuse. But as lightning flashed across the purple-tinged sky, Marcus saw clearly for just a moment. It was not a scavenger. It was someone. Marcus hesitated. The colony had rules, harsh ones enforced by the Overseer Council with brutal efficiency. Unauthorized resource distribution could result in business closure, deportation, or worse. He had heard stories of humans who broke the rules, and none of those stories ended well. The council did not believe in second chances. Another flash of lightning illuminated the figure. It was an elderly Ithran, one of the reptilian species that made up a small percentage of the colony's workforce. The alien's scaled skin, normally a deep emerald, appeared dull and gray. He was not moving. Marcus cursed under his breath. His daughter's voice echoed in his memory, something she had said when she was 7 years old, before the war took her. "Papa, if someone needs help and you can help them, that's not a choice. That's just what you do." He grabbed his waterproof coat and pushed through the back door into the storm. The wind hit him like a physical blow, nearly knocking him backward. Marcus leaned into it, fighting his way to the waste disposal unit. Up close, the Ithran looked even worse. His breathing was shallow, his 4 eyes closed, and his body shook with violent tremors. "Hey!" Marcus shouted over the wind. "Can you hear me?" The Ithran's eyes opened slowly, struggling to focus. He tried to speak, but no sound came out. Marcus did not waste time asking questions. He hooked his arms under the alien's shoulders and lifted. Ithrans were lighter than humans despite their size, their bones hollow like birds. The elder weighed almost nothing, as if he were made of paper and air. Marcus half carried, half dragged him to the back entrance and into the kitchen's warmth. Inside, Marcus lowered the Ithran onto a bench near the heating unit. The alien's scales were cold to the touch, far colder than they should be. Marcus had learned enough about colony species to know that Ithrans were cold-blooded, dependent on external heat sources. This one had been outside too long. "Stay here," Marcus said, though he doubted the alien understood English. "I'll get you warm." He cranked the heating unit to maximum and grabbed every clean towel he owned, wrapping them around the Ithran's trembling body. Then he moved to the stove and started preparing something he had not made in months. Real food, not the processed slop he served to paying customers. He pulled out his emergency supplies, the small stash of ingredients he saved for himself, and began cooking. The rice went into the pot with twice the usual water. While it simmered, Marcus prepared a simple broth using the last of his real chicken stock, brought from Earth at outrageous expense. He added ginger, garlic, a pinch of salt. The kitchen filled with a smell that reminded him of home, of his daughter sitting at the counter doing homework while he prepared dinner, of a life that felt like a dream now. Ithrans were omnivorous, capable of eating most foods that humans could digest. Marcus had served a few over the years and learned their preferences. They liked warmth, both in temperature and spice. He added a careful amount of chili paste to the broth, enough to stimulate but not overwhelm. 20 minutes later, he carried a bowl of rice and broth to the bench. The Ithran's eyes were open now, watching him with an expression Marcus could not quite read. Alien faces were hard to interpret, but something in those ancient eyes spoke of intelligence and deep weariness. "Can you eat?" Marcus asked, holding out the bowl. The Ithran's three-fingered hands emerged from the towels, shaking badly. Marcus held the bowl steady as the elder brought it to his lipless mouth and sipped. The alien's eyes widened, and he made a sound deep in his throat that Marcus recognized as pleasure. He drank more until the bowl was empty. "Thank you," the Ithran said in heavily accented but clear English. His voice was rough, like gravel sliding across metal. "You show kindness to one who has nothing." Marcus refilled the bowl. "What's your name?" The alien hesitated. "I am called Fruck. Long ago I had other names, titles. Now I am only Vrax. I'm Marcus. Welcome to the Golden Spoon." He gestured around the shabby restaurant with a bitter smile. "Not much to look at, but the food is honest." Vrax ate 3 more bowls before his shaking subsided. Color began returning to his scales, the gray fading to a healthier green. "You take great risk," Vrax said quietly. "The council does not permit charity." "The council can go to hell," Marcus replied, surprising himself with his own vehemence. "Eat as much as you need." That night began a pattern that would continue for 2 weeks. Vrax disappeared before dawn, vanishing into the colony's shadows. Marcus never asked where he went or where he slept. But every evening just after dark the old Ithran would appear at the back door. And every evening Marcus would cook for him. They did not speak much at first. Vrax ate silently, methodically, as if each meal might be his last. Marcus cooked, experimenting with different dishes, trying to remember recipes from his old life. He made congee with dried seafood, fried rice with vegetables, noodle soup with whatever protein he could afford. For Vrax, he always used his best ingredients, his private stock. The expense was mounting. Marcus's reserves dwindled quickly. He started skipping his own meals to make sure Vrax had enough. When Gormak at the trading post raised his prices again, Marcus sold his spare clothes to cover the difference. "Why do you do this?" Vrax asked one evening, his voice stronger than it had been. "You have no obligation to me. I am nothing, no one." Marcus set down a bowl of steaming soup. "My daughter used to say that helping people isn't a choice. It's just what you do." "She is wise, your daughter." "She was wise," Marcus corrected quietly. "She died 8 years ago. The Human Krell War. She was a medic, trying to save wounded soldiers when the enemy bombed the field hospital." Vrax's 4 eyes closed briefly. "I'm sorry for your loss. To lose a child is to lose a piece of your own soul." "You have children?" "I had 3 sons. All gone now in different ways." Vrax's expression grew distant. "I was not always as you see me. Once I held authority. I made decisions that affected thousands of lives. I believed I was doing right, creating fairness in a system built on exploitation." Marcus sat down across from him. "What happened?" "I spoke truth to power. Power does not appreciate truth." Vrax's clawed hand tightened around the bowl. "The Overseer Council rules this colony through fear and greed. I tried to change that. I established labor protections, fair wages, safety standards. For 2 years, this colony was a model of cooperation between species." "You were the governor," Marcus realized, pieces clicking into place. "I heard rumors about a Ithran who ran the colony before the current council took over. They said he was executed for treason. They declared me dead, but death would have been mercy." Vrax's voice hardened. "They destroyed my reputation, erased my achievements, turned my own sons against me by threatening their families. Then they released me into poverty to die slowly, a warning to others who might question their authority." Marcus felt anger rising in his chest, hot and familiar. He had felt this rage before, when the military brass had told him his daughter died a hero, as if a word could replace a life. "How long have you been living on the streets?" "For years. Others like me, those who fell from favor, we hide in the abandoned sectors. We survive on scraps and mercy." Vrax met Marcus's eyes. "Until you, no one had shown mercy in a very long time." The next day Marcus's regular customers started warning him. A Dravic miner named Krell, who came in twice a week for fried rice, pulled him aside. "Human, you must stop feeding the Ithran elder. People are noticing. The council has informants everywhere." A Zentarii trader named Velka, who appreciated Marcus's soup, said much the same. "The old one is cursed. Anyone who helps him brings the council's attention. You should turn him away. But Marcus did not turn Vrax away. Instead, he cooked for him every night, preparing meals with more care than he had shown anything in years. Through food, Marcus said things he could not put into words. Through each dish, he honored his daughter's memory and his own fading belief that goodness still mattered in a cold universe. Vrax, for his part, began sharing stories. He spoke of his homeworld, of Ithran culture and philosophy. He had been a scholar before becoming governor, specializing in interspecies relations. Your people fascinate me, Vrax said one evening. Humans possess a unique capacity for both cruelty and compassion. You can wage terrible wars, yet a human will risk everything for a stranger. It is a paradox I have studied my entire life. Maybe we're just stubborn, Marcus suggested. Too stupid to know when to quit. No, Vrax replied seriously. It is strength. The strength to remain humane in inhumane conditions. That is humanity's true power. On the 14th night, Marcus was preparing Vrax's meal when he heard vehicles outside. Through the window, he saw 2 black armored transports pulling up to his restaurant, their lights cutting through the evening darkness. His blood went cold. The Overseer Council's enforcers. The vehicles stopped directly in front of the Golden Spoon. Doors opened and armored figures emerged. 6 of them, carrying weapons that could vaporize a human in seconds. Leading them was a massive Corinthian, his crystalline exoskeleton gleaming with embedded rank insignia. Commander Zelthrax, the council's chief enforcer. Marcus looked at Vrax, who had risen from his seat, his expression resigned but calm. I am sorry, Marcus Chin, the old Ithran said quietly. I should not have come here. Now I have brought disaster to your door. The restaurant's front door exploded inward with a deafening crash. Enforcers poured through, weapons raised, filling the small space with their threatening presence. Commander Zelthrax entered last, his 6 eyes scanning the room with cold efficiency. Marcus Chin, Zelthrax's voice boomed through a translator. You are in violation of Colonial Regulation 47B. Unauthorized resource distribution to a designated criminal. Surrender the fugitive Vrax immediately, and your punishment may be limited to deportation. Marcus stepped between the enforcers and Vrax, his heart pounding but his voice steady. This man has done nothing wrong. He's just hungry. That man, Zelthrax pointed a clawed appendage at Vrax, is a convicted traitor who spreads sedition wherever he goes. He has been sentenced to isolation and deprivation. By feeding him, you have interfered with council justice. Your justice is cruelty disguised as law, Marcus shot back, surprised by his own boldness. I'm not handing him over. Zelthrax's crystalline face somehow conveyed amusement. You are one human. We are 6 armed enforcers. You have no choice in this matter. But as the enforcers moved forward, something unexpected happened. The restaurant's back door opened and Krell the Dravik miner stepped in. Then Velka the Zentarii trader. Then others, alien workers Marcus had served over the years, filing into the small restaurant until it was packed with bodies. He has more than himself, Krell said, his voice gravelly. He has us. Zelthrax's eyes narrowed. This is mutiny. All of you will face severe consequences. Then we face them together, Velka replied. This human showed us that kindness still exists. We will not let you punish him for it. Marcus stood frozen, overwhelmed by the sight of dozens of aliens, different species, different cultures, united in his defense. Vrax placed a hand on Marcus's shoulder, his touch gentle. You see, Commander, Vrax said, his voice carrying surprising authority despite his frail appearance. This is what the Council fears most. Not weapons, not rebellion, but simple compassion that reminds people they are more than cogs in your machine. The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Commander Zelthrax's weapon hummed with lethal energy, but he was outnumbered and he knew it. One wrong move could spark a riot that would spread through the entire colony. Finally, Zelthrax lowered his weapon slightly. This is not over, he growled. The Council will not forget this defiance. As the enforcers retreated to their vehicles, Marcus released a breath he had not realized he was holding. The gathered aliens began dispersing, some patting him on the shoulder, others nodding with respect. But Marcus knew the truth. This was not a victory. This was the beginning of something much larger and far more dangerous than he had ever imagined. The price of compassion. The black armored transports did not leave. They remained parked outside the Golden Spoon for 3 days, a silent threat that kept most customers away. Marcus watched them through his window, feeling the weight of unseen eyes tracking his every movement. The few brave souls who still came to eat did so quickly, nervously, always glancing at the vehicles before hurrying away. Vrax had disappeared the night of the confrontation. Marcus searched the usual places, the abandoned sectors where the colony's forgotten gathered, but found no trace of the old Ithran. He told himself that Vrax had simply moved on, found safety elsewhere, but the knot of worry in his stomach refused to loosen. On the fourth morning, the transports finally departed. Marcus felt no relief. He knew the Council's methods well enough by now. They did not retreat, they simply changed tactics. That afternoon, Krell the Dravik miner arrived with urgent news. "Human, you must hear this. Word is spreading through the work camps. The Council is preparing something. They are calling a public assembly in Sector 1 tomorrow at noon. Attendance is mandatory." Marcus felt ice in his veins. "What kind of assembly?" "The kind where examples are made," Krell replied grimly. "They will display Vrax, I am certain of it. They will use him to remind everyone what happens to those who defy Council authority." Marcus's hands clenched into fists. "Where is he? Have they captured him?" "I do not know. But the Council has ways of finding anyone they want to find. This colony has no true hiding places, only temporary shadows." That night Marcus could not sleep. He paced his small apartment above the restaurant, his mind racing through impossible scenarios. He was one man with no power, no influence, no resources. What could he possibly do against the Overseer Council and their army of enforcers? His daughter's voice whispered in his memory again. "If someone needs help and you can help them, that's just what you do." But how could he help? He was a cook, not a soldier. He had left that life behind after the war, after watching too many good people die for causes that seemed increasingly meaningless. He had run to the edge of explored space to escape violence, to find peace in something as simple as preparing food. Yet here he was, drawn back into conflict by the same thing that had defined his daughter's short life, the stubborn refusal to let injustice go unchallenged. At dawn, Marcus made his decision. He went down to the restaurant and began cooking. He prepared everything he knew how to make, using every ingredient he had left. Rice dishes, noodle bowls, soups, stir-fries. He cooked until his kitchen was filled with dozens of containers of steaming food, far more than he could ever sell. Then he loaded it all into his battered cargo hauler and drove to Sector 1. The central plaza was already packed when Marcus arrived. Thousands of alien workers had been herded from their jobs and living quarters, forced to witness whatever spectacle the Council had planned. 4 massive display screens had been erected around the plaza's perimeter, and a raised platform dominated the center. Enforcers lined the edges, weapons ready, their body language radiating menace. Marcus parked his hauler at the plaza's edge and began unloading food. Workers nearby watched with confusion as he set up a makeshift serving station, laying out containers and utensils scavenged from his restaurant. "What are you doing, human?" a Zentarii female asked, her multiple eyes blinking with concern. "Feeding people," Marcus replied simply. "Anyone who's hungry, come and eat. It's free." Word spread quickly through the crowd. Workers began approaching cautiously at first, then in greater numbers. Marcus served them with steady hands, ladling soup, spooning rice, handing out food to anyone who asked. Dravik miners, Ithran laborers, Zentarii traders, Corinthian engineers, species that rarely mixed outside of work, all eating together from the same dishes prepared by human hands. A pattern of unity was forming around Marcus's simple act. The enforcers noticed but did not intervene. They seemed uncertain how to respond to someone distributing food rather than weapons or propaganda. At precisely noon, the display screens flickered to life. Commander Zelthrax appeared, his crystalline face filling the massive screens. His voice boomed across the plaza through speakers that made the ground vibrate. "Citizens of Kepler 442b colony, you have been assembled to witness justice. For too long, seditious elements have undermined the order and prosperity the Overseer Council has established. Today that ends." The platform at the plaza's center began to rise, revealing a transparent containment cell. Inside stood Vrax, bound by energy restraints that glowed blue against his scaled skin. The old Ithran looked even more frail than Marcus remembered, his body sagging with exhaustion. But his 4 eyes remained alert, defiant. Marcus's blood ran cold. He abandoned his serving station and began pushing through the crowd toward the platform. Around him, workers murmured in shock and fear. Many had heard Vrax's name, knew the stories of the governor who had once treated them fairly. "This creature," Zelthrax continued, "calls himself Vrax. Some of you may remember him as governor of this colony. That title was stripped from him when his treasonous actions nearly destroyed everything the council had built. He established unsustainable labor practices, wasted resources on unnecessary safety measures, and attempted to undermine the natural hierarchy that keeps this colony functioning. He gave us dignity, someone shouted from the crowd. Marcus could not see who spoke, but the voice carried clearly. He made our lives better. Enforcers moved toward the source of the voice, but others in the crowd shifted, hiding the speaker. Zelthrax's expression darkened on the screens. Dignity? The commander sneered. Dignity does not mine ore. Dignity does not meet production quotas. Dignity is a luxury afforded to those who prove their worth through obedience and efficiency. Marcus reached the edge of the platform and looked up at Vrax. The old Ithran saw him and something passed between them: recognition, gratitude, resignation. Vrax knew how this would end. They both did. Recently, Zelthrax continued, this criminal found an accomplice. A human restaurateur who violated colonial regulations by providing aid to a designated fugitive. That human stands in this plaza even now, distributing food as if to mock council authority. The screens shifted, showing Marcus's face in close-up. He felt thousands of eyes turned toward him. Enforcers began moving in his direction. Marcus Chin, Zelthrax's voice dripped with contempt. You will be taken into custody. Your business will be seized. You will be deported to the nearest human settlement with nothing but the clothes on your back. This is mercy. The alternative is far worse. The enforcers surrounded Marcus, their weapons raised. He did not resist as they bound his hands with energy restraints identical to those holding Vrax. They dragged him toward the platform, forcing him up the steps until he stood beside the containment cell. Fraxmitis Iais. I am sorry, my friend, the old Ithran said quietly. I have destroyed your life as I destroyed my own. You didn't destroy anything, Marcus replied. You tried to make things better. There's no shame in that. Commander Zelthrax approached them, his massive form casting both in shadow. How touching. The human and the traitor, united in their stupidity. He turned to address the crowd. Let this be a lesson to all of you. Kindness is weakness. Compassion is defiance. Those who challenge the council's wisdom will find only ruin. But as Zelthrax spoke, something unexpected happened. Krell the Dravik miner stepped forward from the crowd. Then Velka the Zentarii traitor. Then dozens, then hundreds of workers began moving forward, forming a tight circle around the platform. They said nothing, carried no weapons, but their message was clear. Zelthrax's 6 eyes narrowed. Disperse immediately or face the consequences. No one moved. The silence stretched, heavy with unspoken resistance. Marcus felt his heart hammering against his ribs. This was more dangerous than he had imagined. These workers were risking everything, their jobs, their lives, for him and Vrax. Why? Marcus called out to the crowd. Why are you doing this? Krell answered, his gravelly voice carrying across the plaza. Because you fed us when you had nothing. Because you treated us as equals, not as resources. Because you reminded us that someone still cares whether we live or die. Other voices joined in, a chorus of different languages translated through devices, all saying variations of the same thing. Marcus had shown them kindness in a place where kindness had become extinct. That simple act had awakened something the council could not control: hope. Vrax spoke then, his voice amplified by the platform's systems, reaching every corner of the plaza. Commander Zelthrax fears this human not because Marcus Chen violated regulations, but because he revealed a truth the council has tried desperately to hide. This colony does not function through efficiency and obedience. It functions through exploitation and fear. And when one person demonstrates that another way is possible, the entire system becomes vulnerable. Silence him, Zelthrax commanded, but the technician operating the platform's controls did not respond. The Corinthian engineer simply stared at his console, unmoving. Vrax continued, growing stronger with each word. For 4 years I have lived in the shadows, watching the council dismantle everything we built. They erased records, rewrote history, made it seem as if the brief period of fairness and cooperation never existed. But I kept evidence. Documentation of every crime, every stolen wage, every preventable death caused by inadequate safety measures. He gestured with his bound hands toward a small data device attached to his worn clothing. This contains proof of everything. Labor violations, financial corruption, secret agreements with mining corporations that robbed this colony blind while paying the council's members enormous bribes. Every transaction, every memo, every recorded conversation where they laughed about the workers they considered disposable. Zelthrax lunged forward, reaching for the device, but Vrax was faster. Despite his age and bindings, he triggered the device with a deft motion. Data began broadcasting from the platform, streaming to every screen in the plaza, to every personal communication device in the colony, to the communications relay that would spread it across the network to other worlds. The screens filled with documents, audio recordings, video evidence. The crowd watched in stunned silence as years of corruption unfolded before their eyes. Council members taking bribes. Safety inspectors being paid to ignore violations. Quotas deliberately set at impossible levels to justify punishment. Plans to replace expensive alien workers with automated systems, rendering thousands jobless without compensation. Commander Zelthrax roared in fury, striking Vrax's containment cell with his armored fist. The transparent material cracked but held. "You have destroyed everything." "No," Vrax replied calmly. "I have revealed everything. There is a difference." Marcus watched as the mood in the plaza shifted. Shock gave way to anger, anger to determination. Workers who had lived in fear for years suddenly saw the architects of their suffering exposed and vulnerable. The enforcers, realizing their own commanders had been corrupt, began lowering their weapons. One enforcer, a young Ithran, removed her helmet. "I joined the enforcement division to maintain order and protect people, not to serve thieves." She looked at her fellow enforcers. Who else remembers that oath? One by one, other enforcers lowered their weapons, removed their helmets, stepped back from the platform. Zelthrax found himself suddenly alone, abandoned by those who had followed his orders without question. "This is mutiny," Zelthrax bellowed. "I will see every one of you executed." "No," a calm voice replied. Marcus turned to see a tall, elegant Corinthian female approaching the platform, flanked by official-looking attendants. "You will see yourself tried for crimes against this colony." Zelthrax's crystalline face somehow paled. "Governor-designate Shylara. You have no authority here yet." "The Central Administration has received Vrax's transmission," Shylara replied coolly. "They dispatched me immediately with full authority to investigate and, if necessary, dissolve the current Overseer Council. Congratulations, Commander. Your corruption has reached ears far more powerful than mine." She gestured, and her attendants moved to restrain Zelthrax. The massive Corinthian struggled but was quickly subdued by his own former enforcers, who seemed eager to distance themselves from his crimes. Shylara approached the containment cell holding Vrax and deactivated it with a command code. The energy field flickered and died. Vrax stepped out, Marcus beside him as another attendant freed his restraints. "Governor Vrax," Shylara said formally, "on behalf of the Central Administration, I apologize for the injustice done to you. Your evidence has exposed systematic corruption throughout the colonial oversight system. Investigations are already beginning on 12 other worlds." Vrax nodded wearily. "I did not seek vindication, only truth. Nevertheless, you have it." Shylara turned to Marcus. "And you, human?" Marcus Chin, formerly of Earth's Defense Force, decorated combat medic turned chef. "You triggered this entire chain of events by the simple act of feeding a hungry person. The administration wishes to thank you." Marcus felt uncomfortable with the attention. "I just cooked dinner. Anyone would have done the same." "But they did not," Shylara replied. "You did. That matters." Over the following weeks, the colony transformed. The Overseer Council was dissolved, its members arrested. Shylara became the new governor, with Vrax serving as her chief advisor despite his advanced age. Together they began implementing the reforms Vrax had championed years earlier. Fair wages, safety standards, representation for all species. Marcus reopened the Golden Spoon, and to his surprise, found himself with more customers than he could serve. The restaurant became a gathering place, neutral ground where different species met and talked, sharing meals and stories. Marcus hired staff, expanded his menu, and slowly rebuilt his life. But he never forgot those 14 nights when he fed a stranger in secret, never imagining that simple act would spark a revolution. One evening, 6 months after the plaza confrontation, Vrax visited the restaurant. The old Ithran looked healthier now, his scales bright, his movements stronger. He sat at what had become his regular table and waited as Marcus brought him a bowl of soup. "I have been thinking," Vrax said as Marcus sat down across from him, "about your daughter, about what she taught you. If someone needs help and you can help them, that is not a choice. That is just what you do." Marcus nodded. "She was wiser than I ever was. Perhaps. But you honored her wisdom. You lived it when doing so put everything at risk." Vrax paused, his 4 eyes studying Marcus intently. "I have a question for you, my friend." "What?" "You could have turned me away that first night. You could have called the enforcers. You had every reason to protect yourself. But you did not. Why?" Marcus thought about it for a long moment, searching for the right words. Finally he said, "Because I was tired of running. After my daughter died, I ran from Earth, from the military, from everything that reminded me of loss. I came here thinking I could hide from pain by hiding from people. But when I saw you in that storm, I realized something. Running from pain means running from everything that makes us human. Compassion, connection, caring. Those things hurt sometimes. They cost us. But without them, we're just existing, not living." He smiled, a genuine expression that felt strange on his face after years of going through motions. "You asked me once why humans are paradoxes, capable of both cruelty and compassion. I think it is because we are always choosing which part of ourselves to feed. That night in the rain, I chose to feed the better part. And it fed me back something I had lost, a reason to matter." Vrax reached across the table and placed his 3-fingered hand over Marcus's. "Your daughter would be proud." "Yeah," Marcus replied, his voice thick with emotion. "I think she would." As the evening wore on, the Golden Spoon filled with its usual diverse crowd. Dravik miners sharing tables with Ithran engineers. Zentarii merchants laughing with Corinthian technicians. Different species, different cultures, united by the universal language of shared meals and mutual respect. Marcus moved through the restaurant, cooking, serving, talking, listening. He had come to this forgotten corner of the galaxy seeking escape and found instead a purpose. He had learned that sometimes the smallest acts carry the greatest weight, that one person's courage can inspire thousands, and that compassion, simple, stubborn, costly compassion, remains humanity's most powerful weapon against the darkness. In the kitchen, he paused to look at a small photograph he had mounted on the wall. His daughter, smiling in her medic's uniform, young and brave and gone. He touched the frame gently. "I finally understand, kiddo," he whispered. "Helping isn't a choice. It is just what we do." Outside, Kepler 442b's purple-tinged sun set below the horizon, and the colony's lights began to glow against the gathering darkness. In the Golden Spoon, laughter and conversation rose like steam, warming the night. And Marcus Chin, former soldier, reluctant revolutionary, and chef who sparked a movement by feeding a stranger, smiled as he returned to his stove. The universe remained vast and often cruel. But in this small restaurant on this forgotten colony, kindness had won. And that victory, however small, mattered more than Marcus had ever dreamed possible.